Everyone, welcome back to Morning Mug. Today I want to talk about silencing those thoughts. And what this is really about is negative talk. And this is negative talk that you say with your own words or in your mind subconsciously. And this happens for many reasons, of course, but specifically I want to talk about negative self-talk that has to do with people, specific relationships, whether it's friends, family. I'm gonna leave out partners in this video because I don't have much experience on that, to be very honest. But at least with families, at least with family and friends, you know, there there are things that I of course know what to speak on, and also was just setting goals because that's what a lot of this channel is about. It's setting goals, reaching them, and having a step-by-step plan. So I want to talk about the negative self-talk. So this happens because, for the most obvious reason, we don't get what we want. And when we don't get what we want, we think very little of ourselves, of other people, of a situation, and we make ourselves feel worse than what we should. We make ourselves worse than what we should. Mainly because, it's an emotion, right? You hear something that you don't like and you feel bad about it, but imagine you being the person telling yourself this and going through a situation that already isn't good. So you're already doubling more than just a bad situation. Now you have negative self-talk, you know, or maybe you hear criticism from other people because of a bad situation. So you see how this keeps snowballing, and it's easy to fall into the victimhood mentality of like, oh, like life's too hard because things didn't go the way it should have. I feel bad, people make me feel bad, so I'm just gonna withdraw from being around people and somehow figure out how to deal with myself in the process. And that's very wishful. Things don't just come to you out of nowhere, falling from the sky, like confidence and optimism. This is a thing that's like sharpening a sword. You have to sharpen a sword many times before it can cut very sharp. It's razor sharp. And that's like honing a skill. That's like being more optimistic. That's like being more confident. Being more of anything that's positive or beneficial to you. It's going to be a lot like grinding for something that you really want, like hustling, pretty much, putting in some overtime. And it's not like just work. Like, you also have to know when to take breaks too, like, reflect, because sometimes you can be too overconfident. You could oversell yourself, and that could also be a problem, right? So it's good to be realistic. A lot of people confuse this with negativity. Realistic means you do what's in your capabilities, what's in your power. And sometimes you may not know this because maybe you have a lot of potential as a person, but you do things step by step so you can figure out where your potential is in anything. You do things step by step so you can figure out where your you do things step by step so you figure out where your potential lies, and that's how things get done. So, for example, maybe talking to new people. You have a goal to talk to new people because maybe you got out of a bad friendship or a bad breakup, whatever it may be the case, and you need new people to talk to. And maybe you're not very trusting of people right now, but you still want to meet new people. A way to do that is do something that you truly enjoy and find a community. So maybe you like photography, maybe you like hiking, maybe you like photography and hiking. I'm sure there's communities on Facebook, that you can join where you can meet people like that. And even though it's scary to talk to new people, let's say there's an event and you decide to go and you're not sure who to talk to and what to say, you don't have to figure that out already, beforehand. It's better to let things happen as they go. Like, you go there and just read the room, like you just try to see how people are, like the way people act before you even need to say anything. Because chances are you'll know what you need to know once you see it. Sometimes you don't really need to talk to people. You can just see how they are with others, and then you can already form an opinion that, these are the people who, I don't really vibe with, and then the people I do vibe with, or if they're a question mark, you can decide to engage in conversation however you wish, and it can potentially go well or not, but at least you tried. That's the whole point of meeting new people, sparking up new conversations, is that you have to try somewhere. And even if things don't always go well, it's better than to just have either regret or delude yourself in thinking that everyone needs to like you. Because sad reality is that not everyone wants to be friends. Not everybody wants to be able to warm up to other people. So that's truly a skill. Those are like interpersonal skills and relationship building, and you can see this as something that you would need in a job, for example. And having experiences outside, like, just was like something you like doing, that's a skill. So it's good to see it that way and know that you have many times to attempt talking to people and showing the best version of yourself, saying hi, saying things like asking people like how things are going, how their day is, what are their interests, their hobbies, their career. That's a very easy way to start a conversation, but again, sometimes it's just good to read the room. Sometimes some people are shut off from wanting to talk, and it's better just to respect that. They're probably going to say something if the hint wasn't already taken, but it's better not to get on people's bad side, even if you're not trying to, because believe me, like, there's just some people that are like that. So it's just good to, again, see what a person's expression is, and just using simple conversation starters like that go a long way. And yeah, you don't have to be friends right away. I think a good friendship truly takes time to develop. You don't want to be inviting people to your house upon the first day of meeting them. Like, people have very different sides to them. Someone may look warm and friendly at first. They may be more hostile and aggressive about certain things, or maybe very passionate, or maybe very sad. Some people don't show their true emotions until they feel ready to. But that's why you can't just give your trust like a donation, because people can be very good at sneaking emotions and sides to them that may not be very pleasant, and obviously we're humans, we're going to feel a lot of unpleasant emotions and stuff like that, but there are some people who can also sink us down with their vibes, with their behaviors, and if things don't feel right, no one's obligated to be around each other and nothing like that. So there's nothing wrong with like keeping space too. It's just getting a feel for what a situation is with a person, and just figuring out how to deal with that. This requires conversation, and being direct too. This can be very difficult for some people, but I just recommend, just if you know your negative self-talk to yourself, just imagine that like with another person and how that would go. Just being completely honest, even if it feels wrong. But you don't have to use harsh language like stupid or anything like that. It's just, be upfront about the situation. And that tends to go a long way, honestly. Like, it's just better to be honest. And there's ways to be honest without being completely disrespectful. It's just like, I am indifferent. I disagree. I see things a little differently. And that just goes along better than just saying like someone's dumb, someone is ignorant, and some of those things may be true depending on the context of what's being talked about. But you don't have to get into that, because that causes a whole conversation that's not going to be wanted anyways. It's just better to say things like, I don't agree, and then move on. So yeah, conversations, they're difficult. It takes a long time to really get good at them, because people, I don't know, there are a lot of trigger words for people too, and your negative self-talk can reveal a lot about yourself, reveal about the other people that you hang around. So when you try to change those things, it's like, it might be scary because it's what you're used to, but just imagine being used to something that hurts you more in the process. Like, that shouldn't be anything that some person would want. That shouldn't be something a person wants. If you really want to be happy and embrace a better part of life, you have to be uncomfortable knowing that optimism is very difficult, feeling good is very difficult, being confident is difficult, and doing that in front of other people while not caring what the hell they think, that's a serious skill, because people will try to look down on your happiness or whatever it is. But I think it's better just not to care. Let them feel bad, because that's not on you. There are people who can choose to feel better about a situation. If they don't, then that's really not your problem. So when it comes to people, it's a little trickier, because people are very nuanced. People aren't just mad and sad all the time, but it's a whole slew of emotions. So it's just reading them, and again, vibing with the people who have the most similar interests to you. And not everyone has to be exactly like you also to be friends. It can just be someone who likes other things but still thinks in a very similar pattern to you. So yeah, I do believe that people who aren't completely the same can still be friends. It's just what's more important is like your core values, like respect and stuff like that. That's definitely a golden one, just being able to be respectful, because without respect there's really no common ground. So now, if we're talking about goals and like setting a goal, like to get a job or go back to school, go to college, go to university, like if you're talking about goals in that sort of realm, I've talked about this many times on my channel. And what I will say is that, whatever you're feeling now about going through something, whether it's like finding a better job or going back to school to study something else, maybe, or to start just from scratch, maybe college or something, I would say just know what you really want. Like, if that's what you really want, you're gonna feel, again, like hesitant towards it because you know it's not gonna come easy. Do it anyways, you know? Do it anyways because um, I forget who I've heard this from, but you know, when someone becomes a master at something, they're gonna fail many times trying to do things right than someone who's completely new at developing a skill and only failing a few times and probably thinking like they're never gonna be any better. And that's a very bad way of thinking. I've thought that way before, and I know people who've thought that way before too. It's life is very difficult. There's no sugarcoating. Life is very difficult, and it'll only get more difficult the older you get, unless you start, you know, understanding that you don't have to just look at things just being difficult, but being able to have the power and the confidence to get through a problem. And what that looks like is repetition. Repetition is such a good assistant to getting through hurdles, because if you imagine working out, you're only going to get stronger through repetition and consistency. So obviously you have to eat good and sleep well, but you know, when it comes to just working out, like actually lifting weights and doing cardio, like you have to show up and do that repetitively to see results and get better. And that's how it works, you know, like that whole thing about sharpening a sword until it's razor sharp. That's literally what you have to do with skills, with things that, you know, like that sword is going to be very dull, you know, when you're like forging it. It's not going to cut through anything. It's not going to make any significant damage, anything to be significant, right? But once you're putting it through the fire, you're tempering the blade, you're sharpening it on the grindstone, well, guess what? You have a very powerful sword. And that's literally what you're doing with yourself in this transformative experience. Like, you're doing all of those things, and you have to keep doing it until, yeah, like it's clear to yourself and other people, like, you know, you're like almost like a completely different person. And not just like a different person to be a different person, but somebody who is very capable of doing things that are difficult, where many people are going to give up. And even if people do give up, you don't have to give up just because other people give up. And I think that will also save a lifetime of not feeling regret if you at least try something, even through failure, because you're putting that effort. You're showing that you're willing to do more than just fail once and just be like, yeah, I'm not good. Maybe I shouldn't do this. And you know what's even funnier, that I even have to say this? If you ever watch basketball, you will realize that these guys are pros, like the best of the best, and they're still gonna miss shots. And also as any other sport, these are like the top players, you know, top of their league, and they still miss shots. It doesn't mean that they don't belong on the field. It just means that even when you're at your highest functioning level, you will still make mistakes. You will still be proven that you're just human like everyone else. So don't be so hard on yourself, you know, have some grace, realize that everyone's going to be humbled in life, no matter what level you're working with right now. You know, you just have to keep going through the motions of life and realize that, you know, maybe what you're going through is difficult, but many people have already gone through it way before you. And if they found a way, you can find a way. And I believe in you. I believe in you with confidence that, you know, these are just hard times, and hard times eventually do get better. especially when there's effort, when there's faith, there's confidence. You know, you're going through the fire, and you develop a resistance to it. You know, you develop a resistance to doing things that are difficult. You know, it's almost like developing a callus on your body when you're lifting weights. Like, that callus is there to help you not feel pain, really, to lift something up. So yeah, it's like you're just getting more resistance to things that are difficult the more you do them. And I would argue you'll feel happier, you'll be more fulfilled, you will do things again that many people will just give up. They're not even gonna keep trying. And I'd say keep trying. It's definitely worth it. So thank you for tuning in, and there will be more content soon. So, you know, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.